So, welcome back you guys to another video. So today I wanted to talk about the fundamental aspects of yin and yang, good and evil, positive and negative, dark and light, sun and moon, so forth and so forth. Um, if you actually get the reference of where I got that, it is Mulan, part 2, where they're going to save China a second time. And she's singing the song of balance. So everything has to have an equal and opposite reaction. So, with this said, I want to get into this lecture of dark and light, good and evil, dark, balance and all that. So, everything has an equal and opposite reaction. It's a fundamental law of creation, one of the 12 universal laws. So, the yin and yang, good and evil, dark and light, yin being the positive, the the light aspect, the male aspect, whereas the yang is the dark aspect, the darkness, the female aspect, the material aspect, if you will. Is how I perceive it, anyways. I see it as the male aspect is kind of like that etheric type of energy to it, but it's masculine, and it seeks to be above the darkness, above the female. But it's only when they're in harmony that life in the universe can be made. So, the fundamental aspect in which I wanted to teach is that good and evil isn't what we think it is. Not everything is good and not everything is bad. Not everything in the dark is dark. Not everything in the dark is evil. There's what witches call the shadow work, which is using the shadow self, the side that nobody ventures towards. And then there's the light self, the higher self, the inner self, where we can raise our vibrations. But the fundamental aspect that I wanted to teach here is that every part and every aspect of who we are is needed so we can achieve a higher state of consciousness. Everything is a balance, everything is neutral, but it's how we, our mental side, decides to put into aspects, how we ourselves perceive duality. But because we're seeing things in dual vision with the two and not in the one, we can't truly understand the aspects. We can't see or hear or know all, but yet we can understand it. So, only when you come to understand that there is a balance, and balance is always needed to kind of maintain harmony with the universe, harmony within ourselves, because we ourselves are a mixture of yin and yang, male and female energies. So when you embrace the darkness of yourself, you actually come to understand your inner self, your higher self, your deeper intuitive self, the side of you that you neglect, your fears, your anxieties, your worries. I see those as the shadows, the self that we don't want to deal with because, one, it can be either too painful or there's a bit of resistance and understanding, or it's going to be something that's going to be a lot harder to achieve in the long run. But in the end, light and dark has to keep a balance. There has to be balance. If there wasn't, we would be out of balance. But that's why we're here. We're not fully in balance or harmony, but yet we can practice and work towards finding that harmony so that we can align more and more towards our higher self, our lower self, in perfect duality with one another to make the one, which is us, all of us as one. Only when we reach that oneness can we truly understand ourselves, understand our place in the world. we all have a responsibility of the balance, but it's how we see it and how we work with it that creates our like view of things. It's like the cycle of life and death. It's always constant, always kind of like circular in a pattern, but it never ends. So think of it like our consciousness is like a sphere because it's there, but it's not. Because no matter how you turn it, it will always look like a circle unless you never change the direction. Only through the eyes of duality will this ever look like a sphere. Only until you add in other shapes and dimensions do we get the true essence of ourselves. So it's kind of like adding the physical body, the earth, the body, the mental, the sight, and the spiritual, the spirit, into one thing, one shape, and one consciousness. So only when you truly understand who you are inside, you can then venture on into new levels of consciousness. That's how I perceive it. I'm not sure how anybody else perceives it, but this is my own interpretation. That everything has to have a balance, and when you work with that balance, you can achieve great and powerful feats, and you can change your directions. You can change your fate to how you want it to go, but it takes a lot of hard work and dedication because with the light there are some things that you don't get into, and with the darkness there are things that you shouldn't get into because it's more destructive. But when you bring them together in harmony, can life be achieved with one another? So it's kind of, you have to be not too overly aggressive, but you have to also be very, very passive yet firm with your path. Because if you're too hard, it can backfire and it can hurt you. But if you're too soft, you still get hurt. So it's kind of find that right hardness and that firmness and the right kind of like passive aggressive where it's loose enough for you to absorb the impacts but at the same time still move forward. So it's kind of like Wing Chun with Bruce Lee, where you have to always remain loose, let loose, but at the same time fluent and firm. Without that, your form and foundations fall apart. This is the same thing with all forms of energy work. There has to be a foundation, no matter what. So, in the next lection, or lecture, I'll be talking about how to use the energy work. So, I hope this little video kind of helps you guys understand what balance is, and not to be afraid of the dark, but I might explain a little bit more in depth in another video. So with that said, you guys, love and light, and hope to see you guys again soon. And don't forget to like and subscribe.